Hello and welcome to Forever Rugby on Forever Sports for today's reaction to some Sam Cane comments. Could we see New Zealand and the All Blacks following in the footsteps of the Springboks in doing away with their overseas selection policy and allowing All Blacks players to play overseas and still be eligible for selection for the side itself? An interesting concept, potentially could be groundbreaking for them, really, but could also be disastrous in the same breath. So we're going to be looking at some comments Sam Cade made. We'll be looking at a reaction to those comments from Kieran Reid as well. Now, before we do that, please do smash a like on the video. Please do subscribe to the channel as well. Right, so Sam Cane will be playing his rugby this season next to Ches and Colby, by the way. He has signed a short-term deal in Japan, where he'll be playing for Suntory Goliath. And that's all of a sudden rules him out of playing for the All Blacks until he rejoins an All Blacks side. So he basically, there is a policy that no All Black player will be selected whilst not being based in New Zealand. If you go and play overseas, if you base yourself overseas, you play for another a non-New Zealand side, you become ineligible for selection. Because they do not select foreign-based players. Now, Sam Cane has taken exception to this, now that it applies to him, and he has said, well, if you look at what the Springboks are doing, why can we not follow a similar protocol? And this is what he had to say about it. He said, a lot of the Springboks have shown the ability to play in League One and go back to international rugby fairly quickly and continue to play their best. The challenge for us who are on the shorter-term deals in the hope of playing international rugby again is that we play really well here. He then said, should we get the opportunity to represent the All Blacks again, we've got to show we've improved our games. If not, kick off where we left off. If we can do that, maybe that conversation can be held with New Zealand rugby. But I can also see the other side. The fact of having experienced players to bring through young players and young guys in the New Zealand game is equally as important. Obviously, a lot to consider and well above my pay grade, which is very much probably he's pretty right in the case. It's an interesting concept, isn't it? Now the reason that they do not select foreign-based players is because if they did, the floodgates could open. That is the worry. That the minute they allow one overseas-based player to play, you have to allow all of them, for example, and all of a sudden we could be seeing a mass exodus of All Blacks players departing their local Super Rugby sides and making moves to France, Japan, Premiership, for example, and that would cripple New Zealand rugby from a domestic point of view. And there's no doubt that there would be a lot of players leaving, and this is what we've seen in South Africa, And there's no doubt that the standard of rugby within South African teams is poorer because of it. If you were to bring back all those overseas players who are playing, South African-based overseas players, and bring them back to South Africa, our teams would definitely get better. You can't deny that; it's just a fact. I think South Africa can get away with it because we've got such a broad and big player base, which New Zealand don't quite have at the same level. They just don't have the number of rugby players that at that sort of level that South Africa does. Nobody has. We know that statistically speaking, South Africa produced more professional rugby players than any other nation. Now, speaking against this concept is former All Blacks captain Kieran Reid. And he came back and said the following. He said, the seasons don't quite align. We've seen in South Africa, although it can work for them in some ways, they end up playing literally all year round because there's no break between the international and club season. I don't see it happening right now. I don't think it needs to. Certainly the opportunities to have sabbatical and stuff is going to keep the guys in New Zealand a bit longer. And that's what they do. They have sabbaticals. So players are allowed to take a playing sabbatical, for example, where they'll go and play for a Japanese side for a short-term deal, basically like Sam Cane, before returning back to New Zealand. Or while some players even take a non-playing sabbatical, where they basically just take a few months, they don't play at all, and they come back into it. And that basically allows them to stay fresh, to stay hungry, for example, and from a playing sabbatical point of view, to go earn some money. So it can continue to grasp with this idea of, do we let our players go? Do we not? Can we keep our players if we do give them the option? What is the best thing for New Zealand rugby? And for me, look, there's no doubt that from an international point of view, they could get a lot stronger if they were to pick their overseas-based players. But, with the weaknesses within their local sides, then catch up to them as well. So it's an interesting thing. I think the Canada is so important. I think if Canada's were allowed, I think this conversation becomes a lot easier because you don't have to worry about that. Everybody's taking a break at the same time. Everyone's playing domestic rugby at the same time. That is not currently the case. And I think that is something which is going to hamper this sort of ideal because, You've now got players who will be playing in the URC, for example, that then have to play Super Rugby when they wouldn't normally be playing, for example, and having, you know, different sort of club games, different domestic seasons at different times. You know, for example, the New Zealand sort of domestic cup happens in sort of, I think it's August. So once seasons all aligned, this becomes an easier conversation. But I do think that Kieran Reid's got a very good point in saying that with the current season, player welfare, player workload becomes a massive factor, and that's one of the most, that's one of the most important reasons why this rule exists. What do you think? You know, would the All Blacks improve? Should they do it? Let me know what you think down in the comments below. Please do smash the like on the video. Please do subscribe to the channel as well. Thank you very much for watching. My name is Steve, and I'll chat to you soon.